Hello, friends. India is a country which is number 4 ranked in terms of the size of the economy today globally among all the countries. And India has a very ambitious goal to knock off the number third player and become number 3 in next, whatever, 5 years, 10 years, 15 years or so. And, it is not something which is like a secret. It has been openly conveyed at the global forum that we are aiming to become number 3. Well, number 2 are the US and China. Undisputed, there are no dispute. So that means that India has to only knock off the current reigning number 3 position guy and become number 3. All right. And in order to become number 3, what you got to do? Obviously, you need to sell more. You need to sell more, generate more business, and so that your top line can go up, and you will actually knock off the number 4 guy, number 4 country, and become number 3 after US and China. The difference between number 3 and first and second position is humongous. So we are not aiming to become number 2 or number 1. We are aiming to become number 3. And in order to increase our business, we have to look at places where we can sell more. And which are those places? Obviously, the places where we can actually aim to generate more business is the populous center. So let me ask you, which are the most populous center in the world? It is China, it is India. So when it comes to India, we are saying that we have a very huge domestic consumption. Openly, it is known because of 1.4 billion people. When it comes to China, also 1.4 billion people, but they produce for the world what they would need from us. They will basically do the same thing what we are aiming to do. That means find market and sell more products. Well, China is selling it to us. In fact, fully capable of selling their production to us. Number 3 is the US. Number 3 population center is the United States of America. And they also have deep pockets. So USA knows that it's a very critical element for India if India wants to become number 3. Without support of US, you cannot become number 3. Number 4 position when it comes to population center is the Europe, but not as big as US. So whatever happens outside these 4 locations, which is China, India, Europe, continental Europe, and US, is not very material, because if we find alternative markets because of the tariff, the journey to become number 3 will be very, very long if we start selling to Africa, Japan, and other places. If we are not selling to China, India, within India, Europe, and US. US knows this. US also knows that they need to be an important factor for success of India, and they have imposed tariff. And it is definitely a diplomatic hypocrisy. So in this video, we will analyze all of these factors, what is happening here at the diplomatic level, at the business level, and we will break it down, all of these things. So friends, stick around, because this video is going to be very important. It is going to be an eye-opener for Indians especially, and also for everybody across the world. Stick around, friends. So welcome everyone, and let me start by quoting definition of diplomacy. And some people say that diplomacy also stands for hypocrisy. Well, that's jokes apart. So is diplomacy a double standard? It is definitely double standard, and you will know about it as soon as we actually get into the thick and understand the aspect more clearly. It is a question that has been whispered in the back rooms of embassies for centuries, but today, for the world's most populous nation, it is very real, very painful reality. In the past few months, India has been hit with some of the highest tariffs in the world, and they reveal a stark truth about the state of global diplomacy. They force us to ask, is there a fair trade policy, or is it from a form of a diplomatic hypocrisy? That is a question as I begin the video. So Welcome, friends, to our deep dive. We are going to go beyond the headlines to explain what these tariffs are, who they are hurting, and why they are being imposed. This isn't just about the economics, it's about a clash of national interest, a test of strategic autonomy, and the complex, often contradictory dance of international relations. We will break down how these trade barriers are tied to India's relationship with countries like Russia, and how a policy intended to punish one nation is now threatening to destabilize the very alliance it was meant to protect. So let's start with the rationale. For years, the US has been a key trading partner for India, but the relationship has been anything but smooth. Back in the first term, the President Donald Trump famously labeled India as the tariff king. That was 4 years back. Now, in his second stint in the White House, he has made good, honest rhetoric with a shock and awe tariff policy. Until recently, a certain percentage of Indian goods faced 25% duty in the US. But as late of August, which is this month, an additional 25% was imposed, bringing the total tariff to a staggering 50%. This isn't a small increase, it's a monumental jump that makes India export to US commercially unviable overnight. This 50% tariff rate is now among the highest the US has imposed on any of its trading partner, nearly matching the tariff on China. But why? The official justification for this additional 25% tariff is geopolitical one. The Trump administration has explicitly cited India's continued purchase of Russian oil as a threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States. In Washington's view, New Delhi is helping to fund Russia's war in Ukraine, and this is the price for that perceived indiscretion. It's a long shot, and it's a strong arm tactic designed to force India to fall in line with Western sanctions. But this is where the first layer of hypocrisy begins to show. While the US is punishing India for buying Russian oil, China, the single largest importer of Russian energy, faces a lower tariff rate. This double standard is a central point of contention for New Delhi, and bringing us to our next point, which is the economic fallout. The shock waves from these tariffs are not being felt in the corridors of power in Delhi or Washington. They are being felt on the ground in factories and in workshops that are backbone of India's export economy. The most vulnerable sectors are those that are most labor intensive. Think of textiles mill, the gem jewelry workshop, the leather good producers, the seafood industry in coastal states. These sectors, which employ millions of people, are now facing massive competitive disadvantage. Exporters are already reporting a slowdown in new orders, and some are warning that entire product lines will simply become unviable. The Global Trade Research Initiative estimate that the new tariff regime could threaten over $60 billion worth of Indian exports to US. Basically 60 billion will be wiped out in near term, with exports from affected sectors potentially plunging by as much as 70%. This isn't just a number on a balance sheet, it is a direct threat to jobs and livelihood for massive section of Indian population. While some sectors like pharmaceuticals and electronics have been spared for now, the overall impact on India's economy could be significant. Some economists are already revising their GDP growth and forecast downwards, warning of potential slowdown. The domino effect is clear. Reduced export lead to job losses, which in turn hurts domestic consumption and overall growth. But this isn't just about the numbers. It's about deeply held principle for India strategic autonomy. This brings us to the geopolitical game and diplomatic hypocrisy. Here is where the definition of diplomacy is tested. Diplomatic hypocrisy, in essence, is the gap between the nation's public rhetoric and its actual action. It's about the countries demanding one thing of another while engaging in the same very behavior, or by applying a different standard to its ally and adversaries. So, in this case, the US has for years cultivated a strategic partnership with India, viewing it as a key pillar in its Indo-Pacific strategy and crucial counterweight to China's growing influence. The Quad alliance, comprising of US, India, Japan, and Australia, is a cornerstone of this partnership. Yet, with these tariffs, the Washington is now treating New Delhi almost identical to Beijing, which has been a subject to several tariffs as well. India's External Affairs Minister S. Jaishankar has been very clear about this double standard. He has pointed out that while the West criticizes India for buying Russian oil, Europe and America themselves are still doing business with Russia. He has argued that India's decision to buy discounted Russian oil is not about supporting Russia, but about serving its own national interest and stabilizing global energy prices. This trade policy, therefore, is not just about tariffs, it's geopolitical maneuver. It's an attempt to coerce India away from its long-standing policy of strategic autonomy, which allows it to maintain friendly relationship with multiple global powers without being subservient to any single one. The US is essentially saying, choose us or face the consequences. But in doing so, it risks driving a key ally closer to very nation it's aimed to contain, that is China. The irony is not lost on anyone. The very policy meant to weaken Russia is now pushing India to strengthen its ties with both Moscow and even Beijing. This is a classic example of diplomatic hypocrisy backfiring, damaging trust and potentially undermining years of strategic partnership building. So, what should be the India's response and future outlook? How is India responding to this pressure? The Indian government, led by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has vowed not to yield. The response has been multi-pronged, mixing firmness and pragmatism. First, India has maintained its stance on strategic autonomy. S. Jaishankar has repeatedly stated that India has red lines in trade negotiations and will always prioritize the interests of its farmers and small businesses. Modi has framed the situation as a new era of economic selfishness by nations and have called for India to become more self-reliant. Second, India is actively exploring ways to mitigate the damage. The government is fast-tracking negotiations for free trade agreements with other nations, including UK and European Union, to diversify its export market. It is also looking at domestic reforms such as rationalizing GST rates to boost international demand and support affected industries, basically finding domestic market for and covering up for the losses. Third, and perhaps the most interestingly, India is playing a subtle game of its own. While it continues to buy Russian oil, it has also recently increased its purchase of the US crude oil, which could help narrow the trade deficit and ease some of the tension. This shows a sophisticated approach to foreign policy, engaging in dialogue and economic cooperation wherever it's possible, while holding firm on the principles of the national interest. The standoff over tariff isn't a simple trade dispute. It's a complex, multi-layered conflict that pits economic against geopolitics and the national interest against alliance pressure. It is a textbook case of diplomatic hypocrisy, where nations' action undermine its own stated goals. The future of US-India relation hangs in balance. Will the two nations find a way to navigate their differences and build on strategic partnership they have so carefully cultivated over the several decades? Or will these tariffs become a permanent fixture, pushing India further into the arms of rivals and forever changing the geopolitical landscape? One thing is clear: the era of black and white diplomacy is over. The world is a web of complex interdependencies, and the situation with India shows the price of diplomatic double standards can be incredibly high. It's a lesson for every nation that trade is not just about commerce; it's about power, and a reminder that true diplomacy must be rooted in consistency and mutual respect. So, friends, thank you for watching and joining live. If you found this live stream video insightful, please hit the like button, subscribe for more content like this one, and let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. See you in the next one.